Hello and welcome to another episode of Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. Now, of course, it's been a little while since I've done an episode here, partly because I've been doing some different things that come up life-wise. You know how that is. Life sometimes gets in the middle of things. And also because a lot of the games I've been playing lately have been games that I've highlighted already on my channel. So there's not much point, obviously, of making a video about that. And to be quite frank and honest about it, as a wargamer, sometimes I delve into other things as well. And, well, within the last week, I've been spending a lot of time those of you know this character, Hellboy, from the comics, one of my favorite comic book characters, simply because I always have liked him because, well, I've always enjoyed supernatural stuff. Even since I was a kid, I've been interested in all kinds of those sorts of things, vampires, werewolves, supernatural stuff I find fascinating. And also because I love Hellboy as a character because he is the epitome of choice. Everybody's telling him what he should be, and this is what his nature is supposed to be, but he is deciding what he wants to do. So I've always thought that was cool, because I don't believe that anybody's predetermined, predestined to be anything. We can all make our choices and make our own paths. So anyway, I've been spending a lot of time. I just finished playing the 4th or 5th time of that since I got it last Wednesday, and now I'm kind of taking a break from it, although I've enjoyed it, to go back to some wargaming. But while I've been trying to figure out what game to go with here, and I think I finally found one to do for a playthrough, but it's going to take a little bit of time for me to get reacclimated with the game. In the meantime, I thought I would talk about something that a lot of wargamers discuss, and sometimes there's a little confusion. So what I'm going to share is my viewpoint of it, my understanding of it, and again, in the comment section, it's open for discussion and debate and such. But I thought I'd talk about the different levels of warfare. And typically, warfare has usually been categorized as either being tactical, operational, or strategic. So what I want to do for this video is basically briefly talk about that and use games to illustrate that. And then also I want to talk about, in my opinion, what are the 5 different types of war games that are out there for the wargaming community to purchase, to look at, depending on what you're looking for as far as a war game goes. What kind of experience you want, I guess. Because, of course, there's a big difference between being an experience, having where you're the commander-in-chief, as opposed to, where you're, Sergeant Wetzel with your, Tommy submachine gun, or MP40 machine pistol, I guess. Maybe Wetzel would be a better match for that. But anyway, big difference between those things. So let's go ahead and let's just talk briefly about it. And again, this is my understanding of it. And again, I'm more than happy to engage in discussion in the comment section on the video. So to do this, I decided to use some air warfare games to kind of classify the 3 different levels, hoping to illustrate what's going on here. So what we're going to do here first is start with what's called the quote-unquote lowest level, so to speak, where everybody has to start, whether you're Eisenhower or Zhukov or Alexander the Great. Everybody had to start at this level, and that's the tactical level. Now, tactical is kind of like the quote-unquote lowest level. So like here in London's Burning, and now London's Burning, to be honest, is a little bit of an interesting hybrid game because you actually have 2 game boards involved here. You have a tactical game board, and then you also have an operational game board that comes with it. But I'm going to focus on the tactical here for the purposes of the illustration. So tactical is short term. It's the small picture. For example, if you were going to attack the city of Pittsburgh and attack the eastern side of the city, go into Squirrel Hill someplace, or Oakland or something, it'd be like, which streets are you taking? Which buildings do you need to occupy? And for the purposes here of like this game, You can see here on the tactical display, you have the altitudes, so trying to figure out where your planes are, what height, who's coming, who's climbing, who's diving, all those kind of things. Okay, and you also have up here for each individual RAF plane, you have damage areas, you have its actual altitude, you have fatigue for the pilot, you know, you've got all those things because this is small picture. We're talking about individual planes here. You know, one plane, you could have 2 Spitfires or 2 Hurricanes and that's it. Those are your planes, you know, for the game, for the missions, you know, for each gameplay that you do. And of course the Germans, as you can see here, okay, have the similar kind of thing. They have their planes, they have the individual areas where they can be damaged, you know, that kind of thing. So tactical is very much the small picture, if you will. Think of games like Squad Leader, Advanced Squad Leader, Conflict of Heroes. You know, you're talking about which road to take, which building to attack. Do I put my guys in this group of trees over here? Could I be ambushed? Is somebody on the other side of this particular ridge that's in front of me? You know, so tactical is the small level, if you will, the micro level, for lack of a better way to articulate. Okay. The next up then is the operational level. Now, operational is getting a little bit bigger in the picture, and RAF: The Battle of Britain is a good example of that. Here, because here what you're looking at, and just to show a little bit of a segment here on just on the back of things here, you're dealing with whole squadrons here. You're not dealing with individual planes anymore, and you're also dealing with a bigger picture. You know, you see from this map here, you've got London, but then you got all these different sectors and these different targets, the radar sites, you know, factories, airfields themselves, but not the individual airfields, so to speak. You got all those things that are at that operational level. Or if you think of like, basically operational is trying to figure out in your area, you know, how to execute your plan. So for example, to continue with my Pittsburgh analogy, which I'm not trying to beat up on the Steel City, of course I grew up near the Steel City, but you know, if you were advancing towards Pittsburgh, what would be the best way to do it if you're coming from the east? You know, do you want to go up north and come down from Butler? Do you want to try and swing down from Washington and try to go through there? Are you going to take a direct west route and march your way through, you know, Indiana and Katanning and Ford City and all those places? Just go straight in through Murraysville and Monroeville. You know, that's operational level there. It's getting a little bit bigger. You have bigger units. You have a bigger area to cover. So, for example, you know, like operational games would be games that like cover Case Blue. Now, granted, it can be fairly detailed, you know, because there is a game Case Blue and it is ginormous, but it's still operational because it's just focusing on that one area. You know, you're not worried about what Army Group Center and Army Group North are doing. You're just worried about what Army Group South is doing, your area of operations. The Great Campaigns of the American Civil War is a very good operational system because, again, like if you play Here Come the Rebels, you know, you're not talking about, you know, what buildings exactly are there in, you know, Antietam, or Sharpsburg, I'm sorry. Sharpsburg is the name of the town, Antietam's the creek. Sharpsburg, you're just, you know, you see where Sharpsburg is, it's one hex on the map, you know. Whereas if it was, you know, more tactical game, you'd be talking about, you know, individual streets and buildings and such and things like that. The Barbarossa series from GMT, like I'm looking at right over here, Barbarossa, Kiev to Rostov, that's operational. You're talking about one area, okay? So you're kind of like, you're one piece of the puzzle for the bigger picture, all right? And again, RAF is a good example of that because, you know, you're looking at squadrons, you're looking at loot floats, and you're looking at the units to make them up. You know, even your target cards, you know, it's just telling you, you know, the radar net that's in that area. You know, you don't have to worry about exactly what routes your planes have to fly, what the formation exactly looks like. You're just like, dude, I am going to, sorry, there we go. I am going to Poland here because that's where the radar net is. So I'm going to commit these squadrons. You guys get your dupas over there and pound this thing. Or conversely, if you're RAF, you know, blimey, let's get in the understand of these people. Let's give Jerry a right warm welcome. So, you know, and I'll apologize for my British accent if it's not so good. too much too much public television when I was younger. I got my British accent from shows, you know, like Keeping Up Appearances and oh, let's see, Hello Hello, and like Chef and shows like that. So anyway, so bugger. All right, so that's operational. All right, now of course above that then is the strategic warfare game. And this is the game I think I'm going to highlight next on my channel. Let me zoom out here a little bit. B-17 Flying Fortress Leader. Come on, baby, let's cruise away. Yeah. And for those of you who've seen the movie Heavy Metal, I will forever remember that segment with the B-17 bombers and stuff. And that song is just, every time I see a B-17 now, I cannot help but hear that song in my head. Okay. So this is the bombing campaign from a strategic level, because here you're in control of whole groups of planes. And again, you know, you're going after big target areas, and you're just setting the whole formation there. Okay. You know, even look at the counters that you've got here. You're talking about, there we go. You're talking about an entire bomber group or fighter group. We're not even worried about what the individual fighters are. Those could be P-51s or P-38s. You know, these could be B-17Gs or Fs. Who knows? You know, or a mixture of both. Or it could even be some B-24s. All right, and again, look at the map here. The map, you know, England is confined to, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes, basically. Okay? You know, this is big picture stuff that we're looking at here. You know, we're talking, again, about whole squadrons, but at an even higher level than, you know, what we were looking at in RAF. Because RAF, you know, your Luftfloats, you have a bunch of squadrons to make it up, but here you got a whole counter that just represents an entire group of planes of that particular type. In this particular case, it looks like the feared Focke-Wulf 190 that the Allied bombers did not enjoy meeting, so to speak. So strategic is you're looking at the big picture. Or, for example, to use another game, you know, like Russia Besieged here. Okay, Russia Besieged, unlike what I just mentioned a little bit ago, the Barbarossa series from GMT Games, and notice how many volumes there are. I think there's like, what, 9 of those? 10? Something like that. But here, this is the whole picture of Russia. So yeah, here, when you play this game, you're not just like Case Blue. You're not just worried about, you know, the area of Army Group South. You got to consider Army Group North, Army Group Center, and Army Group South. Okay, so strategic is like the big picture here. And again, like B-17 Flying Fortress Leader, you're looking at the whole bombing campaign. You know, we're not even talking about being in charge of just one squadron or, you know, one group that's concerned with a certain area. You know, it's not like you're commanding just one bomber group that's charged with bombing Germany. You're in command of a bunch of different groups with a multitude of targets because it is strategic in nature. Okay? So, those are, in a nutshell, kind of like the 3 different areas of it. And obviously, the higher up you get, the bigger the picture, the more, you know, more, I'm trying to figure out the best way to articulate this, the larger the decisions you have to make. You know, like a squad leader, yeah, you have to figure out how to deploy your squads and figure out where, you know, who's going to carry, what unit's going to take the heavy machine gun and stuff, and where to position people to capture that one building, you know, like the Dzerzhinsky Tractor Works. But, like, here, you're trying to figure out, okay, who are the best squadrons to send, you know, on this mission? How to best allocate my fighter squadrons to protect, you know, do I send up a greener group, or do I send up a more battle-hardened group, but, you know, they're dinged, you know, they're banged up a little bit and stuff. So, you know, the further you go up, the bigger the picture gets, okay? Now that leads me to, and it kind of, there's going to be a little bit of an overlap here, no big surprise there. That kind of leads me to what I describe as the 5 different types, the 5 different types of war games that you can encounter. Okay, obviously there's the tactical one, which I've already talked about some. Again, squad leader, advanced squad leader, conflict of heroes, those kind of things. That's all tactical. Now, I also classify kind of in between tactical and operational. I classify another group of games, and I really don't have an example. I don't believe I have. I'm trying to think here, and I've been looking at all my my games and stuff I own, and I don't play these anymore. I used to play quite a few of these, but I don't. But what I like to call set-piece battle games. So, for example, a game about the Battle of Gettysburg, or the Battle of Leuthen, or the Battle of Waterloo. That's a set-piece battle where you're just focusing on the units that were on that battlefield in that area. Now, that's bigger than tactical because you're talking about a whole army, but it's still not as big as operational, because operational, you would have bigger formations, more formations. You'd have numerous corps. Now, granted, you could have that on a battlefield too, but best way I can think to articulate it is it would be kind of like the Battle of Waterloo. You'd just be focusing on the units that are at the actual battlefield, whereas operational, you would not only be looking at, hey, these guys are marching up here towards Waterloo, but you'd also be looking, okay, where are the other armies deployed at? What are they doing? There'd be more units than just on that particular area of a battlefield, a smaller space, if you will. Any one of those, like the Cross 5 Aprils, each one of those games in there, Shiloh and Gettysburg, and trying to remember what else is in there. I think there's one on Bull Run, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a long time since I played that, because like I said, I really don't play set-piece battles anymore. But those are kind of the set-piece battle games. And then you have your operational games, which again, great campaigns in the American Civil War. The Barbarossa series from GMT are good operational examples of operational games that are out there. Now, strategic, again, could be like Russia Besieged, or like Trial of Strength. Those ones would be, your strategic games, or even like Fortress Europa. Those would be a larger strategic game. Now, you also would have one other classification that I put out there, is grand strategy. Now, grand strategy games are probably the rarest of games, because a grand strategy game really needs to have, for grand strategy, you really need to have a political and economic and a military aspect, because that really is combining that highest level of implementing your politics. When Clausewitz said that war is politics by other means, I mean, he was right. Politics by other means is also like, diplomacy. Whether you think diplomacy is, the art of cutting a cake in such a way that everybody thinks they have the biggest piece, or, if your philosophy on diplomacy is, diplomacy is saying, nice doggy, until you can find a bigger rock. Oops, wrong game. You need some kind of political element to it, making alliances, breaking alliances. Economic-wise, too, trade agreements, economic sanctions, that's all politics by other means. You're trying to achieve your goals for your state, whatever that happens to be. So again, grand strategy games, you don't find too many of those. And even myself, I really don't think I own too many of those, because it's hard to find a game with all those components. Because even take a game like the Russian campaign, or the Barbarossa campaign, rather, from Victory Point Games. You do have an economic element to that, and you do obviously have a military element to it, but there's really no political, no diplomatic element to it. There isn't that aspect of the game. However, a game that recently has come out that does cover all this, is a good example, in my opinion, of grand strategy, is Cataclysm. Because Cataclysm here, you do have to take into account all three things. You have politics. You have your internal politics. You got to worry about your home front, your stability test. But you also have your flags that you can use to try to bring countries into your sphere of influence, or you can use them to influence other countries, to try and form alliances and stuff with them. So there's a political aspect to it. There's an economic aspect too, because you got to figure out, which resources to put into your pool as you upgrade from the different levels of commitment. From the peacetime to the mobilization to warfare to total warfare and all that kind of stuff. You have to figure out economically. Okay, so what units, when I add units to the pool, if I'm Japan and I'm going after the Soviet Union as opposed to trying to shake down the United States and the British Empire, obviously the units you're going to put in there, the economic choices you're going to make, what to build and such, are going to be extremely different from that perspective. And then, of course, the military part, where you actually have the military units that you commit. In Cataclysm, of course, you really are looking at the big picture, because military units, you know, you can see like here, you know, tanks and infantry and stuff. You're talking large units as well, too. And Cataclysm also, of course, has a political element to it from the different crises markers, you know, that are drawn, and the different crises that happen, because you have to react to that. Again, you can react to it using, you know, using political, military, or economic force, so to speak. You know, there's different ways to do it. The only other game I can think of off the top of my head, and I'm sure those of you watching will be able to come up with a lot more examples. I believe, and I've never played this, but I've read different articles, because over the years I've debated whether I should buy this game. But Empires in Arms, I believe, has all those components to it. I think the Napoleonic Wars might too, but I'm not so sure about the economic aspect of it. But even Victory and Glory, which came out last year, Napoleon has all those aspects in it. I guess that is another grand strategy game. I'm admittedly a little more abstracted, but you do have, you know, political and economic considerations to take into account, as well as military, you know, too, because you have influence cubes that you can put in different places to form alliances and impact, you know, neutrals and stuff to score victory points. And then, of course, you have your actual armies, and then you also have an economic track which gives you victory points too. So I guess that's true. Victory and Glory would be another example of that. So, okay, so with that thought in mind, there again, you know, I just thought I'd kind of share this, because this is like a question that comes up sometimes, and I hope I've done a pretty good job of explaining it and articulating it as far as the different levels of thinking, if you will. I mean, you can't really say the different levels of strategy, because then it makes it a little bit redundant when you talk about you know, strategic operations. But yeah, so those are the different areas, the different levels of tactical, operational, and strategic, and then of course grand strategy too. And then of course the different type of games that you can encounter depending on what floats your boat. You know, like the Battle of the Bulge, which of course is a situation that is gamed, in some people's opinion, is endlessly fascinating, and others find it to be gamed ad nauseum. Those are all operational games, because you're talking about a very large area of operations, but it's not strategic though either. It's not tactical, unless you're playing like Kenneth Piper, I believe, is one of the ASL expansions that you can do. But unless you're playing that, where you're, or like, you know, squad leader scenario. I think there was a scenario in the original Squad Leader, Road to St. Vith or something like that. You know, that would be a tactical Bulge situation. Whereas most Bulge games, like, you know, Fast Action Battles Bulge, which is the only Bulge game I own, you know, that's operational. You're looking at the bigger picture there. But again, you're not worried about, you know, what's happening on the Mediterranean front at the same time. So it's not strategic. You know, or you're not worried about what's happening even further down the front, you know, in front of Patton, what's going on there. You know, you're not concerned with that. You're concerned with where the Germans have attacked to launch the Battle of the Bulge. So anyway, so there's a little, I guess you could call it like a tutorial intro. There's a lot more, of course, that goes with all of this, but, you know, I just thought I'd throw it out there, some information to, you know, to help folks make decisions and you know, think about things. So anyway, so next time, which I don't know when that'll be, to be honest, because right now time is at a premium. I am thinking, though, the next time I see y'all, I probably will be flying the unfriendly skies of B-17 Flying Fortress Leader, which I haven't played for a while. I think about a year since I've played this, so I'll need to brush up on a few scenarios before I play it for you guys, just to make sure. I gotta find my binder too, because the first edition rulebook was, woo, UGLY. That ain't got no alibi. It was ugly. Yeah, but the designer, I believe, was Dean Brown, if I remember correctly. Let me flip this over. He really did a lot of work on Board Game Geek. Yeah, Dean Brown. Supporting, helping revise things and stuff. And there was a printable version, which I have in a binder here, of a revised rulebook that he put a lot of time and effort into working on, that helped clarify things. Yeah, I know you Hitler's Reich people. You're like, dude, where's our revised rulebook? We're not getting into that. There's plenty of threads on Board Game Geek that y'all can take a look at if you want to get into that discussion / debate / side of the fence. Which team are you on, so to speak? Team, the rulebook's not that bad, or team, the rulebook is yee. I've stayed out of that because it's just, yeah. Anyway, you can go on Board Game, you can look at the threads if you're really interested. So here's what I'm thinking. I don't think I've done, well, I did Alexander, Field Commander Alexander. I have done one of the leaders, but I haven't done one of the air leaders. I have this, I have Corsair, I have IAF, I have Hornet, and I have Phantom Leader. So as you can see, I do enjoy the leader series from DVG Games. So, this has been, once again, as always, Tim Korchnoi from Bones Wargaming, saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time from the unfriendly skies in my flying fortress. Well, commanding my flying fortress boys. I guess it'll be more like, this will be more like 12 o'clock high is kind of what this game is like. But you can command General LeMay's squadron in this, so LeMay did a lot of important things. People have different opinions about him and stuff, but some of his innovations, like the formation, the way the B-17s protected each other and stuff like that, the fact that he flew lead bomber how often, I mean, you can't take away stuff like that. Even when you may not like somebody, you should always give credit where credit is due. So, on that happy note, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time, sometime, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that plays out. Thanks for watching.